Good to have you with us. You're watching the Urban Debate. I'm Avni Raja, and our focus today is going to be on the COVID situation right now, especially in light of what's happening in the state of Kerala. For the last few days now, the state has been recording more than 30,000 cases. This is happening after the festival of Onam. So it's a post-festival spike that we're seeing in Kerala. Not just that, on the national level as well, across India, the number of cases today that we saw is the highest in the past in nearly 2 months. In fact, the positivity rate has gone up slightly, and there are some other indicators as well, which could suggest that we may be looking at a spike in COVID cases, and that is what we're going to focus on today. Whether we are seeing signs now of a possible third wave that has been talked about for the last several months, and whether Kerala is going to be the one leading the third wave at this point in time. Let me welcome our guests who are joining us right now to discuss this. We've got Dr. Rajeev Jayadevan, Scientific Advisor of the IMA, Dr. Ishwar Gilada, Infectious Diseases Expert, and Dr. Rajiv Dasgupta, Member, National COVID Task Force. Thank you all of you so much for joining us. This is, of course, extremely important here because right now they're just initial signs and there are different, views on whether or not this should be interpreted as the beginning of a third wave. So I'd like to get all your views on this. Let me start with Dr. Dasgupta. Your perspective here as what we are seeing now. Let's talk first about the national picture before we get to the state of Kerala.
Thank you. The national picture currently is dominated by the events in Kerala, and therefore the national picture closely mirrors what's happening in Kerala. The question, therefore, is what's happening in Kerala. Now, as I see it, and I base this observation on a combination of the zero prevalence as available from the fourth national round, where Kerala has the lowest zero prevalence, as we know, around 44-45%, and a combination of the number of cases which are reported, which is in turn a function of the number of tests carried out or the tests per population carried out. Now, a combination of this actually shows you, and this is my take, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but that would be proved only in hindsight, that Kerala is still witnessing its second wave. Its second wave is still not over, whereas among states with very high seroprevalence and a high undercount factor, such as Madhya Pradesh, such as Gujarat, such as Maharashtra, though the undercount is certainly less, you would very clearly see one or two waves, and the second wave is really what dominates the picture, and it comes down very sharply and nearly ends, whereas in Kerala's case, it's probably a prolonged second wave. But then this would be a diagnosis which would prove only on hindsight.
Okay, all right. In fact, Dr. Gilada, if I can come to you here and your perspective on this, because we did see the cases in Kerala sort of ebbing and had even gone down to the 10,000 cases a day kind of levels just a short while back. But then obviously post-Onam, we saw that huge spike coming in, and that obviously at this point is not seeming to abate.
See, I would like to tell one thing, that in COVID, not the cephalologist who say that coming on this day. Secondly, India is a vast country, is a conglomerate of many. So many states are behaving differently. Thirdly, our yardstick of looking at it is different, not only on cases. From the yardstick, how they are managing cases. Are they for ICU beds or ventilators? So they are not. They are very well managing. We should not be bothered much. Thirdly, the case fatality rate FR of Kerala is 0.5%. It is one of the lowest in the world. Consistently for last 1.5 years, they are at 0.5. So that is one of the best yardstick. In any such injections, CFR is like 0.5%. That is mortality rate 0.5%. So 1,000 people getting succumb, and most to comorbidities. Again, we should give Kerala upper hand. Number one, maintaining CFR at lower level. Number two, a very good vaccination. Kerala is the number one in vaccination, but if you look at some state is at number three. 82% of the Kerala adult population is already vaccinated with one, and 30%. Now, looking at the current cases, it is possible.
Dr. Gilada, I'm afraid we have an issue with the audio. We'll just try and get that line corrected at this point in time. Meanwhile, let me go across to Dr. Rajiv Jaydevan at this point. Dr. Rajiv, your perspective here in terms of how this could play out with respect to the state of Kerala sort of, being leading the way as far as the next wave is concerned.
Yes, I'm very happy to hear the words of Dr. Rajiv Das Gupta and, of course, Dr. Professor Gilada, both very learned men. And whatever they said, I'm so sorry I could not hear Dr. Gilada out very well, but I've listened to him so many times. I think I could piece the words together between the blanks. But I'll start from where Dr. Das Gupta left off. He said, "Wisdom is always in hindsight." That is such a profound statement. Whenever every nation is now seeing that. See, look at United States. They had declared that the pandemic was over and everybody could come out of their homes and do whatever they wanted, take the mask off. See where they are now. So wisdom is always in hindsight. So as far as Kerala's situation goes, at this time, as Dr. Gilada was saying, the systems are working smoothly in terms of hospitals. We keep a close tab on the ground, on the data, feedback from individual practitioners. So we keep a very, very close tab on, we in the sense the doctors here. And we also advise the government from our end as well. So as of now, things are working smoothly in the sense if someone is sick, they can find their way to hospital. If someone is not very sick, they can get treated at home under home monitoring, and there is plenty of telemedicine available, and there are people checking in on people's homes. Kerala has a very, very, very robust public health network with a healthcare worker designated at literally every home. So all that is taken care of. But my concern is, where will this end? For the last, I would say, a few weeks, cases have been hovering around the 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 mark. You can argue that the new numbers that have climbed over the 30,000 mark could be from two reasons. Primarily from increased mobility during the festive season. People are just going to come out of their homes and visit someone, and you can't really stop people from doing that. And secondly, the number of tests have actually gone up from around 1.1 lakh to 1.7 lakh. So clearly, the more number of tests you do, there will be some bump in cases. But clearly, we have to keep an open mind and be prepared. It's like an aircraft that's in turbulence. So we should really brace. Put all your seatbelts on, watch for the oxygen mask. If they drop down, do what you have to do. So that's the stage Kerala is at. I wouldn't call it a desperate situation, but I'll call it a situation that requires heightened alertness and preparedness to change and immediate remedial measures without choking the common man's livelihood. And now that's a fine balance, as you will very well agree. I'm sure all the experts will agree that it's a very, very fine balance between life and livelihood. But I agree with all the comments that the experts have said here. Kerala has more number of people who have not been naturally infected. And so that is also a problem in one sense.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Dr. Rajiv Das Gupta, if I can come to you here and please correct me if I'm wrong, because one part which a lot of experts have pointed out is that so far Kerala's the vulnerable population has been much more than the rest of many parts of the country right now because in the first wave Kerala handled the situation very well, and so there is still a large number of population where the sero prevalence is very low. But my question is, now in the last, if we look at the last 4 months, the positivity rate in Kerala has not gone below 10%, and now we're closer to 20% in fact. Shouldn't that have caught up by now in terms of the number of people who've had COVID and coupled with the fact that the vaccination also in Kerala is much higher than the rest of the country?
Okay, the last thing first. Of course, the vaccination in Kerala, particularly the coverage of the first dose, is ahead of most other states. But again, at this point in time, the dominant variant is the Delta variant, which we know has the ability to escape the immune mechanisms. In other words, even with one dose of vaccine, the probability of infection remains higher. But of course, it would mean that deaths and complications are low, which we know that Kerala's case fatality rate has been around 0.5%, certainly the lowest among major states. The other thing to keep in mind is that because of the Delta variant and the fact that most people are staying at home after being diagnosed, which is absolutely fine because, for example, Thailand shifted from a policy of isolating the positive cases in facilities outside home, and now with a very large number and surge in cases, Thailand has switched to home isolation. The point is that when you have home isolation, despite the best precautions, and we know that homes are not really the ideal homes in many cases, there are congestions within home. What is known as the secondary attack rate, which is that how many people inside the household would get infected, is about 80 to 100% for Delta variant cases, which means that almost every family member would catch the infection. And that's what exactly is happening. That's what is leading to the seemingly high case count. But then again, with a combination of high vaccination, good care, as our other colleagues are explaining, and as we know all along, Kerala has been able to keep complications and deaths low. And certainly, at least for most districts and most cities in Kerala, the health service is not overwhelmed. There are capacities still to absorb emergencies as they may arise.
Yes. All right. Let me, in fact, bring in Dr. Gilada at this point in time. Dr. Gilada, of course, one part of the discussion is what went wrong, and that has been discussed quite extensively. But the question now is what next and what to do going forward. And with respect to, again, the state of Kerala, the fact that there is still such a spread, the other big concern is that when the spread continues, irrespective of the intensity of the cases and the hospitalization rate and all of that, the fact is when you have this kind of a spread, the virus mutation chances are much bigger, much higher rather, and that threat becomes more.
As I said here, we do not understand the behavior of the virus much. About 6 or 8 months back, I used to say myself that if you look at the East, particularly Thailand, Korea or Taiwan, they were masking so much so that the infection rate was very low. But we have seen, even they have come back to us. So the behavior of the virus is totally ununderstood. Secondly, India is enemy of itself. We don't need outside enemy to tell India is bad. The total parameters all over the world are lakh cases. India is at 150th number in number of cases per lakh population in total. And in next 4 million population of lakh population is 119th in the rank of 215 countries. So India is not bad. But we ourselves say we are bad, we are doing this, and our third wave is coming in such a way, we need so much oxygen. Yes, second wave was horrible. There are multiple reasons. We should not try to discuss second wave, why we could not do that. But third wave is not going to be much bigger. Second wave, we are already prepared for everything what is required for the third wave. We should open up livelihood. We have looked up at the right. Livelihood is very, very important. What Kerala is doing, nothing wrong. We cannot pinpoint on Kerala that Kerala has done something wrong. Secondly, if you talk about Onam happened just 4 days back. If Onam has to be reason, it will take minimum 10 to 15 days to increase. And between 2 days of 20,000 and 33,000 cases, if you look at the testing in Kerala, it was 20% less. If the testing is 20 or 30% less, the cases will be less earlier day. So we cannot go by only number of cases. As Dr. Gupta said, that we should look at parameters, how Kerala is really managing this pandemic. And I think there is something one we are not understanding, that it is already only problem in coastal belt. Then Kerala, then Tamil Nadu, then Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, so on coastal belt. And then Thailand is almost 3. And thirdly, if you look at Maharashtra had 8 districts of concern. Out of the 3 were focused, one was Kolhapur, and other 5 were still bad. Now these 4 districts have improved.
Right.
Has gone to 100 cases per day. So possibly Kerala and Goa are going towards that. Maybe after a week or 2, Kerala will be much better.
Okay. All right. Dr. Gilada, in fact, let me also go back. Dr. Jayadevan, coming to you now in terms of, what we've seen post the festive season in Kerala. And now, of course, the festive season is also coming up. October, November is when the other festive seasons in the country come up as well. And the centre today itself has warned all states to ensure that there are no mass gatherings for the upcoming festive season. How much of, would you be concerned about the fact to see that in a state like Kerala post the Onam, the kind of spike we saw, the threat of something like that happening in the rest of the country as well?
Well, if you look at history, if you look at 2020, you can see a clear uptick from August through October in Kerala. In fact, that is the only spike Kerala had in 2020. And that happened to coincide with Onam. And of course, the October surge is about 2 months out. But still, we, for want of better explanations, we would, most of us agreed that it was perhaps related to the surge of Onam. But let's just think a little bit beyond that. Let's just look at the globe or look at the whole planet as a whole. And if you just cross the ocean 40 miles and enter Sri Lanka, Colombo is having exactly the same kind of problems that Kerala is having. It's hardly, I think it's less than 100 miles from here. So they have exactly the same weather, the same kind of humidity, rain, all that sort of thing, and it helps the virus hang around in the air longer. Now, that is where I would like you to, I'd like to bring your attention to what's called the epidemiological triangle, and that deserves some discussion here. And the epidemiological triangle for any infectious disease has 3 elements: agent, host, and environment. Agent is a virus, host is man, and environment is what separates the virus from man, which is what's around us. It includes air, the temperature, the humidity, the wind flow, the number of people in the room, the air replacement rate, and the direction of airflow. And there are so many other elements as well in terms of environment. The point is that while we discuss about agent and host with great vigor, how many discussions have we had about environment? Very little. But the fact is, environment plays a major role in the spread of respiratory viruses. And the SARS-CoV-2 virus is an envelope virus, which means it is susceptible to what is happening in the environment more than non-envelope viruses. And viruses broadly can be classified as the ones with a coat on, like my coat on, that they're at the envelope, and the ones without a coat on. There are some other viruses. The ones with an envelope or a coat are susceptible to atmospheric conditions. So, and it is not a binary effect. You can't just say at this temperature the virus dies. And that sort of narrative faded out last year because it is all fake. But my point is, much research needs to be done as to why in certain areas the virus appears to be spreading more. Say, for example, the northeastern states, they had similar weather conditions. In Florida and Louisiana had similar weather conditions. And that's where the pandemic really started off in the 4th wave in the US. So we need to really pay attention to, we need to really have a broad spectrum or broad canvas here rather than just focus on just one festival and assume that everything happened because of Onam. That may not be. In science. The correlation need not always be causation. I think we should take a couple of steps back and look very carefully at some other factors that may be involved. For instance, look at the weather patterns in different regions. See if we can correlate a search and call in the experts. And that's really where I would like to focus some attention on and bring the experts on. I'm not an expert on weather or weather conditions, but I've studied enough physics to understand that. But really, that's an area that needs to be explored more.
Okay, Dr. Gilada, would you agree with that? That other correlations need to be looked at, especially now we have multiple festivals that have gone by in the past year and a half now, which we've seen the impact of those festivals on the COVID numbers, the COVID spread in some parts of the country. But do you believe that that's not the only correlation to go by at this point, and we should look at other aspects as well?
Raju said rightly, correlation cannot be causation. and host parasite environment relationship is important. If we have to look
Yes.
at people's behavior, I think people's behavior is same everywhere, whether it's India, different states or different countries. Now, what we need to look at, the current status of Bimaru states, the so-called Bimaru states, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, they are reporting less than 100 cases today. So we should look at what is there. The virus is different there, virus behavior is different there, people's behavior is the same. So if we are not looking at that, we always have one or the other scapegoat, and then the politics and religion comes in. Any problem plus religion and politics is the worst problem. If you minus that, then you focus on science. So in India, everything but the science and logic. Everything is all discussed, which is totally nonsense. So basically, we need to look at two things. Why the rest of the country, particularly northern part of the country, Hindi heartland of the country, why infection is lower now? And why infection is higher here? One of the factors is that 46% seropositivity rate in Kerala was 20% than other places. And the second phase is started late, so it is ending late. So we should look at that, and possibly Kerala is nearing herd immunity. Now we need to look at herd immunity. Whether herd immunity is sacrosanct at 70%, who decided? This is just a logic. It can be 80%, it can be 75%. It may not be herd immunity at all. If you look at the herd immunity, any logic, Kerala.
Right. All right, I think we've lost that line with Dr. Gilada. But Dr. Dasgupta, coming back to you here, the other question that I had was with respect to what we saw before the second wave. And at that point in time, when we were at the end of the first wave, and, there was a lot of sort of jubilation that it is all over. But the point is that now we are seeing a spike in cases even in other countries, and very often India has followed with a delay what's happened in other countries. Do you think that is a threat even this time around, that we could, follow other countries a little later? Dr. Dasgupta, I think you're speaking on mute. If you can please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Well, just to cheer up the situation a bit, I think it's going to be the other way around this time. India has had its worst, led by the Alpha variant and the Delta variant between February and April, May this year. Florida was mentioned. Right. Florida, not just the health services, but even the mortuary system is overwhelmed. Now, that's because the Delta variant has now hit the US or many states and many countries around the world. But we have really had the worst of the Delta variant. We know how many cases we had. We know it's a very large number of deaths. Let's not get into the undercount of deaths business at this point. But the point is that the tsunami of Delta wave has gone through India, and it's only Kerala that we are now seeing which had a low seroprevalence or relatively low seroprevalence, and therefore we are seeing the sort of perhaps the tail of the second wave as far as national picture is concerned. So this doesn't mean there couldn't be a new variant or a new phase, but we are probably not going to follow others. It's probably the other way around. The others are following us.
All right, Dr. Dasgupta, I think on that note, it's the perfect time to end this discussion. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're completely out of time. Of course, with respect to Kerala, there is a sero survey that has been ordered for the state. So that hopefully should throw up more insights as to what's happening and why we are seeing that kind of a spike. Meanwhile, of course, states have been asked to ensure that there are no mass gatherings for the upcoming festive season. But we'll, of course, keep track of all these developments as well. Thank you so much for tuning in.